rock and the animal?
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. The rock doesn't have a subtle body. Yeah. The rock is just matter, physical body. Now, over time, when this projection sits in awareness, over time, because you can have time with the projection, because you have duality, then because awareness is sitting under or supporting the material projection, it starts to interact with that, and conscious beings evolve. The first projection is just the material substructure. You don't have the jivas appearing until the five elements, the material world, is created. Why don't you have the jivas come first? Well, you don't have the jivas come first. Why? Because the jivas need a field in which to work out their karma. Remember, awareness becomes a jiva and it thinks it's incomplete. So it has to do actions, karmas, to try to complete itself. Well, it can't complete it, it can't do any karmas unless there's a world in which it can act. So the first projection, the first layer of this creation is what? Is a material creation. And then, because you have consciousness and matter together, right, the first sense organs start to appear. In other words, the subtle body starts to appear and you start to get conscious beings. And they start out very, very rudimentary, like unicellular organisms, even smaller. Viruses are kind of in between material and conscious. They're a weird thing. They behave as if they're alive, but they're not actually alive. They're at an interface between the subtle body and the gross body. The gross body means the physical matter. And then as this process of evolution, and evolution takes place in Maya. You don't evolve out of Maya. All evolution takes place in Maya. Then the subtle body becomes more and more complex. So when you get to plants, plants actually have a subtle body. In other words, even though they're programs, they are just ideas or programmed by Ishvara, and they have a physical body, they also have a subtle body. And science will tell you this. I remember back in the 60s, they did experiments on plants. And they would put a plant the same plants in one room. They'd have this beautiful music playing, and another room they'd have this really awful music, terrible, just cacophonous, nasty music playing, and they were tomato plants. And in the room in which there was beautiful music playing, the tomatoes grew very fast and big and rich. And in the other ones, many of the plants died and they shriveled and they barely produced any tomatoes at all. Means what? The plant isn't just material at all. It's actually sentient. A tree, for example, will what? Move toward the light. A plant will, if you put a plant in a room, it will what? It will tend to move toward the light and away from the darkness, which means that there's a subtle body in there that's sentient, it's conscious, it feels. Now, the next level up are the animals. Then as the subtle body differentiates more, animals come, and there you start to get kind of feelings in the animals. You'll see fear and some kind of desire there in animals. Very rudimentary at a low level, you'll see in animals. And animals have a huge range of subtle bodies in animals also. And then, some animals are extremely rudimentary. I mean, there's down on the bottom of the ocean, there are these little creatures in these vents, these hot vents where they, have you ever seen the pictures of them? They're unbelievable. I mean, you can't believe that they're actually conscious beings. They almost look like plants. But you can see them sitting there in those vents, sucking up nutrients and growing and have bodies and all of that. So they're like a little more advanced than plants. But then when you get up to, like, say, dogs and cats and monkeys and dolphins and even chickens. They've discovered that chickens are way more intelligent than we ever thought they were. The subtle body is becoming more complex. Now, in other words, what's happened is not just the emotion. They're not just emotional. They're not just reacting on a feeling level to things, but the intellect is starting to evolve. They have a rudimentary intellect. They can make certain choices. It's really, they can actually think and create culture, like a bear's, for example. A bear he likes to eat ants. Strange, isn't it? This great, huge creature, but they like to eat ants. But it's a big trouble to get at the ants often. So when they'll find an ant nest, what they'll do is they'll get a stick, and they'll put the stick in there and collect all the ants on it, and then they'll lick off the stick. Like you'd, huh? Huh? See, they actually can think. It's not big thinking. And they are not self-reflective. In other words, they don't have an ego. Now, when consciousness evolves as humans, now humans are called manusha. These are jivas that are called manusha. Manusha means jiva, M-A-N-U-S-H-A, manusha. And they are jivas that think. That's how the Vedic seers categorized the human beings. They said these are animals that think. And there, in human beings, the intellect is highly developed. Not in all human beings. In some it's rather basic, but in others it's extremely highly developed. But human beings have self-reflection. In other words, there the intellect, because it's made of sattva, and there's a high percentage of sattva in the subtle body, then this self-reflectiveness comes in human beings. They're the most sentient beings, because not all animals and plants are only aware of the outside world. They're not aware of themselves. They don't know themselves. They're just programs. They're just Ishvara's programs. And they've all got jobs to do here. Ishvara's given them all particular functions or jobs here. And they're just doing their jobs, their dharmas, without thinking about it. But human beings, that's a different story. They're actually aware of themselves as well as the environment. This is where the problem comes. This is why human beings have such problems. Because with that self-awareness comes free will. In other words, choice starts to enter into it. So there, a human being can do what? A human being can, what? Go against his or her program. They can make choices that are contrary to their swadharma, their nature, to the program, to what Ishvara has programmed them with. And this causes a huge amount of conflict. And that's only possible because the subtle body is so highly developed in human beings.
That is free will?
Yeah, that's free will. There is and there isn't free will. Okay? From Ishvara's point of view, there's no free will. But from Jiva's point of view, there is free will. If there's not free will, then we don't need a scripture. Then we're just programs. See? We don't need culture, we don't need a scripture, we don't need knowledge or anything. We're just programs. But the fact that there is free will means that we have culture and knowledge, and that we have this whole means of knowledge, because you have a choice here. As long as you take yourself to be a jiva, an individual, you have a choice. The choices are limited. They're limited, but you still have a choice. So you can choose to get out of samsara if you want. If you don't, well, you can just stay here and go round and round and round until forever. But at some point you wake up and you realize, I need to get out of here. And it's only possible to wake up and get out of here if you have an intellect. And intellect is only developed enough in the human beings. Swamiji used to say there's There's stone people, plant people, animal people, people, and God people. And God people are the few kind of people who are what? Who've realized that their actually awareness are not in samsara at all. They're no longer jivas. They look like jivas, but they're not jivas. They're one with Ishvara. And so their will and their power and their energy is completely different from normal people. These are Mahatmas. And they're amazing people. What happens around them and in them is very different from what happens in normal samsaris. Because they've actually, you could say, transcended. We don't like the word transcend, because there's nothing to transcend. But we can say they've transcended, or they've gotten out of this dream. And they live as awareness. And they have powers like Ishvara's. They don't have the power to create the whole universe, but Ishvara uses those people, right, to achieve certain purposes. And so these are called Mahatmas or Siddhas, accomplished people. So that's a story. So does that help? It's a short answer. So this is consciousness, but it's not sentient because there's nothing for it to be aware of. When Maya is operating, where Maya is operating, then the objects appear, and then consciousness can become sentient. It can know. And so pure consciousness plus Maya is called Ishvara. There is pure consciousness is called Ishvara, and it knows everything. It's not a big jiva, like it's not a big person. Most people think that Ishvara is like a big person. That's the Christian idea. They've personified or projected humanness onto Ishvara, onto God. It's not a big person, but it's conscious. And we know that it's conscious because you can see that what? The creation is totally conscious. Everything here is following a certain plan. The Christians are very good with this. They've got a nice word for it. They call it intelligently designed. In their fight with the scientific community, they come up, they're hitting back at the scientists. They say, well, yeah, this is an intelligently designed creation. It's not designed, it's designed by God. It's not designed by what you think it is. It's not a random design, but it's actually designed by God. So you can see that Ishvara is conscious by observing the effects. Because this world is just an effect of Ishvara. It's non-separate from Ishvara, but it's a visible effect of what? Of that conscious being. It's not, that's a bad word. That conscious being makes it sound like Ishvara is like a person. But it is it's just consciousness plus matter, and it's totally intelligent. This is why everything here follows its dharma. Because it's controlled and regulated and governed by Ishvara. And Ishvara can't do that and maintain the consistency of this creation unless it's intelligent. If it isn't a rule of laws here, if Ishvara isn't all the laws and rules that are operating intelligently in this thing, then you don't get out of bed in the morning. You won't get up because purposeful action will not be possible. You will not know what the result of your action. You'll have no idea what a potential result is because it could be anything. But because it's a lawful universe, you can reasonably expect that if you do certain action, you will get certain results. And therefore, you can work out your karma here. Anyway, that's the topic for today is Jiva, Ishvara, and action, karma. And karma we can do, what you can do. See, if you understand what we've said so far, then you'll see that you're not a doer. You'll understand I'm awareness. And the problem of how to live, what to do in your life and how to live in your life, that won't be a problem anymore. Whatever life you have right now will be fine with you. Because you'll know that while your life is you, you're not it. You're free of this person. Moksha is not for this person. Moksha is freedom from this person. People think this person's going to get the moksha. Well, no. This person is going to discover that it's awareness and see that it, as awareness, it's free of the person. So when you understand that, it's all, whatever karma you have, whatever destiny you have, whatever lot you have in life is fine with you. You don't worry about it. And what should I do now? You don't. There's always something to do. Whatever's in front of you at the moment, you just do that. Because you're not expecting what you do to make you full or complete or to make you happy. You don't expect anything to come from the outside to make you happy. So you can just do anything. You won't break Dharma, you won't break the rules because you're in harmony with Dharma. Awareness is in harmony with everything because everything is what? Awareness. So there's no conflict between you and the world at all. And so whatever the world offers is fine. But if you don't understand that, then you still think that you're primarily a jiva. Now we're not saying that your jiva disappears. We're saying that you're getting an identity that includes and encompasses the jiva. Understand? That in the spiritual world, you got this idea, well, the jiva's got to die so that what? You can, what? Become the self. But the jiva doesn't have to die that it can become the self. Because the jiva and the self are not in opposition. Duality doesn't mean they're opposite each other. The jiva is a subset of what? Of awareness. The jiva is just a tiny factor in you, in awareness. Now, of course, it doesn't feel that way if you're a jiva. It feels like there's only you. Huh? And not in a good way, not in the good way of feeling that there is only you. As awareness, because there's only awareness, so there's only me, so everything's only me. But jivas don't know that. They just think, I'm all there is. And everything is for my pleasure, for my will and my pleasure. So, if you take yourself to be a jiva, then you are a doer. Jivas are doers. Jivas are acting. Why are jivas acting? Because awareness is shining on the subtle body. You have no choice. As soon as awareness illumines the subtle body starts to dance. That's called life. And it becomes active. It's just like a whirligig of energy. And jivas are busy from the day they're born to the day they die. They're always moving, they're always changing, they're always acting. If you identify with the jiva, then you think you're a doer. Now, don't you always say, what should I do? Am I doing the right thing? Etc., etc., etc. Huh? Isn't that thought just the most common thoughts you have? All the time you're worrying, what should I do? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? So forth and so on. You have this thought all the time. Now, why is that? Because you think you're a doer. You think that you're in control here. And you're identified with your actions. You think that your actions should produce results that are suitable to you. In other words, that will make you feel complete and whole, make you happy. So we don't, even though from the self's point of view, that jiva is just a dream, a silly dream. You know, this is where the neos got it wrong. The Neos say, oh, hey, you're not a jiva at all. Forget it. You're only awareness. Forget it. That's what they say. Well, that's great. They're right. Absolutely right. But what? That doesn't take away my sense of individuality at all. That just denies it. Because you can't just accept yourself as awareness until what? You really understand the whole picture. Once you've understood this whole teaching, then it's easy to accept yourself as awareness. It's easy to see that you're not the jiva, and that the jiva doesn't have to go at all. That mithya, the apparent reality or the duality, isn't in conflict with non-dual reality. There's no conflict at all. So you get to be awareness and have a jiva. Huh? It's a win-win. Huh? Moksha is a win-win. Huh? You get to keep your jiva and enjoy your jiva and all of its silly antics here, all its silly things. It's really funny. When you know who you are, to watch your jiva, you're perpetually amused. You can't believe that that this jiva is doing all these funny things, saying these stupid things and doing these stupid things. You just, and you're laughing at yourself all the time, at your jiva all the time, because it's just strange. So, just denying this and saying it's not real, while that's true from this point of view, it's not true from this point of view. I am a jiva. And so now in this case, moksha is for the jiva also. We said it's freedom from the jiva, but there's freedom for the jiva as well. Understand? So for this jiva to be free, he or she needs to understand who he or she is. And in order to understand who I am as a jiva, I'd better understand Ishvara. Because everything that I am as a jiva comes from Ishvara. Understand? See, in the modern spiritual world, all they deal with is what? Jiva and awareness. Paramatma. They just talk about consciousness or awareness. They say you're awareness and you're not this jiva. Well, okay, whether you are the jiva or you're not the jiva doesn't matter. What they're saying is there's two things. There's jiva and there's awareness, paramatma. That's what they say. And that's true. We're not saying that that's not true, but they're leaving out the most important factor. And what is the most important? What is the link between paramatma and jiva? Ishvara, the creator. Understand? So unless you take Ishvara into account, the causal body or Maya, the gunas, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of words for it. Unless you take Ishvara into account and understand Ishvara, then you're not going to be fulfilled here. Your jiva is not going to be happy. So that's why we have to, when we're talking about karma, in other words, what you can do, and when we're talking about the jiva, the doer, and action, then we've got to talk about Ishvara. And in the modern spiritual world, there's no talk about Ishvara. They say, just say, no God. See, the way they get out of this whole teaching, because they don't have a teaching actually, is just say there's no God, there's no jiva, there's no ignorance, there's no knowledge, there's nothing to do. It's all just you, awareness. Boom. That's true, but what it doesn't help. It isn't helpful. It's just confusing because I still think I'm a jiva. And my jiva is not helped. Maybe and you see these people who know their awareness, but it hasn't helped their jiva at all. Like Andrew Cohen, there's a good example. I only talk about him because he himself admitted that he wasn't enlightened, that he was a bad person, all the time for 27 years claiming he was enlightened, he was awareness. So his enlightenment didn't have any impact on his jiva at all. It just kept getting more and more monstrous, and more power hungry, and more abusive, and more angry. I never saw such an angry person. Well, Krishnamurti was pretty angry. But this guy was totally angry all the time. And now he's saying he's what? Awareness, that he's enlightened, and yet his jiva's angry all the time. Now, excuse me, huh? There's got to be some disconnect here. He said, because I don't have a jiva. If there's no Andrew here, there's no person here. That's your projection. You're projecting that on me, huh? So it's really your anger you're seeing bouncing back at you. And so they just wiggle their way out of this whole thing because why? They haven't taken the jiva, the individual, the doer, the person into account. And you can understand why. You can understand why, because this person is a problem. Swamiji, Swamiji is a great guy. He was just so funny. So one day, people came and said this all the time, but I remember one day it was particularly funny. This little person came up and touched his feet, and he said, Swamiji, I have a problem. And Swamiji looked at him and he smiled. He said, you don't have a problem, you are the problem. He said it in such a way that it was really funny, and the guy laughed too. He wasn't insulted by it. He was very kind. So even though Swamiji was very, very hard, hard on people, he was very kind in the way he said what he had to say. And so you never really felt offended by it. But, this is a problem person. This person itself is a problem. So we need to understand this person. We need to take this person seriously. Understand that? That's the beauty of Vedanta. We actually take this person, this jiva, seriously, and we show this jiva what it can do to what? To get the knowledge that it's awareness, to set itself free. Denial is not going to work. It works for 5 minutes. So when the neos tell you that you're not this, there's this big relief. Oh my God, I'm not my mind, I'm not my ego, I'm not my body. And you get high for a little while. Huh? It's just intellectually knowing that relief and hearing that is a huge relief to you and you feel good. But after a while, the jiva, you start worrying about your taxes and your relationships and your body and all that other stuff. And you find yourself right back down here as a jiva again. And then you can't understand, well, but I'm awareness now. Why am I worrying around here like a jiva, acting like a jiva here, like a person, identified with this person? So now, as I said, if you're awareness and you understand that and the knowledge is firm, you don't need to worry about any of the rest of this teaching. You can go home. Right? It's fine. But if you're still sitting here, then you need to understand Ishvara, Jiva, and its relationship to you, to awareness. And that's the topic now. And that involves sadhana. It involves doing. What kind of doing and how to do is the topic now. That's called yoga. See, we said when we began, we said that the idea that I can do something to get moksha, in other words, that action will produce moksha, doesn't work. In general, that's called yoga. I'm not putting down yoga. Yoga's great, mind you. In general, that's called yoga. We're not talking about yoga vidya or any particular yoga. The word yoga is a generic term that means what? Action, connecting. It means to connect or to communicate with, to join to. So if you're joining two things, you can't join them without action, can you? If you have something here and you have something here, you can't get them together by anything other than doing something. But because I'm already awareness, doing something's not going to work because I'm already connected. I'm already joined. See? Now, but having said that, yoga action is great for what? Preparing the mind to understand. So yoga is for antakarana shuddhi. This is called the antakarana. It's called the inner workings. The subtle body is called the antakarana, and shuddhi means purification. Now, purification doesn't mean it's going to make you a better person. Purification means you're going to get rid of the relative proportions of rajas and tamas that are disturbing you and develop a sattvic mind. And all of sadhana is what? For the purpose of developing a sattvic mind. Because it's only in a sattvic mind that this knowledge will take root. If the mind is predominantly tamasic or predominantly rajasic, this knowledge won't stick. People come to me every day when I'm teaching. They say, Jesus, that's great. That's amazing. I'm so inspired. And wow, I got it. And then they'll say, but like 20 minutes later, I lost it. It was gone. I'm back to normal again. What happened here? Well, nothing. You did get the knowledge, all right, but then what? Rajas or tamas got in your mind. You identified with the rajas or tamas, and what? And the sattva went away, and when the sattva went away, the knowledge went away, and what? And you came back down. So that means what? Some purification needs to be there to get that knowledge steady and firm. And once the knowledge is steady and firm, then you'll just live a sattvic life anyway. And the knowledge will remain constant or steady in the subtle body. And that's freedom for the jiva. There the jiva is a jivan mukta. That jiva is what? Mukta is free. That's free by what? By knowledge, not by any other means. Why? Because I'm already free. So, what is this jiva and what is this samsara in which the jiva lives? See, that's the topic to get started for today. Now, we said we got to start at the beginning, obviously. With Vedanta, we have a complete teaching. We start at the beginning and we go right through to the end. If I am in a samsara, then who or what created the samsara? How does it work? This Maya world. See, I find myself as a jiva. I appear here one fine day, and the whole thing's already set up. Everything's set up. I've got the body, I've got the mind, I've got the karma, I've got what, and there's a world around me, there's people in it, there's plants and animals and air and fire and water, and the whole thing is all set up. And one thing I've got that I don't particularly want, but it's not up to me, is I'm ignorant of my nature. That's the jiva. Jiva doesn't know it's full and complete. So what does it do? It does actions to complete itself. I have to keep repeating this because you need to understand this psychology, mind you. If you just because it's operating all the time in you. And you can't do anything about it, but when you become aware of it, then you gain control of it. So these jivas feel incomplete. And they do actions to complete themselves. Now, no problem, except problem. There's a small problem with action. When you do an action out of a feeling of lack, and all your actions, except like children, now you'll find children, they don't feel like empty. So they'll do all kinds of actions, but it's out of happiness and joy. And enlightened people are the same way too. They'll do all sorts of actions, but they do them because they're happy. They don't do the actions for happiness. They do actions from happiness. Children are like that. They'll just play and play and play, and they won't care. I was at the beach one time, I saw these kids build this beautiful sand sculpture. And then they just attacked it and knocked it all down and ran and played in the surf. They worked for an hour or two to make this beautiful sculpture, and then they just destroyed it and walked off. That's fine. They're just happy. They're happy with it, they're happy without it, and then the next thing, and so forth and so on. They weren't trying to get happy out of what? Doing anything. But jivas here, what? They're in this doing business for what? For the happiness they think they can extract from the samsara, from the world. Now, no, fair enough. There's only one small, not so small, fly in the ointment. What is that fly in the ointment? What is that downside to action? Vasanas. Ooh. This is the key word now. Okay? You need to understand this. A vasana is the result, the unseen result of an action. Actions have two results, drishtapala and adrishtapala. Pala means result. So drishta means a seen result, and adrishta means an unseen result. Now when I do something out of this feeling of incompleteness, I will get a result. Every action produces a result. That's the result I'm going for. I have a couple of beers and what? I get a little tipsy and feeling good. That's the seen result from my drinking beer. Fair enough. Now, the problem with that is that result, and I think it's over, I've stopped drinking beer, but what? There is an unseen result. There's something going on behind or underneath this good feeling, this glowy feeling that I have after I've had my beers, that I'm not aware of at all. That's the unseen result, and that unseen result is called a vasana. So here I am as a jiva, a subtle body. I'm doing an action in the world. And what happens to that? And the action finishes. And then what? That vasana or unseen result goes back up here to the causal body and sits there as a tendency to repeat that action or avoid that action, depending on the result. If it's a bad result, I want to avoid that action in the future. If it's a good result, then I want to repeat that action. So karma's never clean when the doer is doing it. Karma's never free. Karma always has this hook in it. For the things that you like, that give you pleasure, what? You develop pravritti for them. That is, pravritti means you go toward those objects. And for objects that give you pain, you develop nivritti. You shy away from them. You avoid those objects. This is just fundamental, basic jiva psychology. So you have two types of vasanas, pravritti vasanas and nivritti vasanas, based upon what? Your likes and your dislikes. Those likes and the dislikes have arisen out of what? Your experience in the world. And since all jivas are born at different places at different times in different circumstances and live in their own little worlds, they all have different combinations of vasanas, likes and dislikes. Understand? Now, I do an action and I get an obvious result, and I also get a vasana from that action. I collect a vasana. And that, like for example, you have sex. Now, did anybody have sex only once? Say you had really good sex. It was great sex. Did you ever not want to do that again? Yeah, no hands go up. No. You wanted to do that again. If the action, if the experience of sex had been fulfilling, permanently fulfilling, yet that would be it. You'd be enlightened. You'd be happy all the time, wouldn't you? Huh? Wouldn't you? Yeah, of course you would. But it isn't, is it? It's not fulfilling. It's not satisfying. Bad news, right? Why? It must not be satisfying because why? You want to do it again. If it was satisfying, you wouldn't want to do it again. You'd be satisfied. But you become dissatisfied. Why? Because you've got a vasana for it. So now I've got to do it again, what? To get rid of that vasana. That vasana drives me to what? The vasana is what drive you and motivate you toward objects and away from objects. So now what? I was quite happy, but now I'm starting to get the itch again. Oh, looking around, huh? And now I've got to go what? I've got to get rid of that vasana, that discomfort, that desire or fear. Fear is a negative desire, and desire is a negative fear. Desire is a positive fear, sorry. To get rid of that, I've got to perform another action. And when I perform another action, in other words, I go for another object, what happens? Another vasana goes back up to the causal body. This is unseen. You don't see it. You don't realize this is happening. It's unconscious. It's hidden. Another vasana goes back up here and reinforces the first vasana. So now, now I've got two vasanas really tight together here. In other words, the strength of that desire has been strengthened. That fear or that desire has been strengthened. It's become stronger now. And so that generates a kama. This is the process. Vasana, kama, karma. Okay? This process is taking place in samsara, in Maya. And so the first stage is what? You can look at it either from the outside in or you can look at it from the inside out. It doesn't matter because reality is non-dual and this is just a process that's going on in samsara. You can either analyze it from any one of these levels. But let's say you start with the action, which is what most people are, and that produces a vasana. And that vasana causes a desire. That's called kama. Vasana means what? Just a tendency. It's just a tendency. It's potential. It's like this level here is like the elementary particle level in physics. But this is the elementary particle level of your psychology. This is a very bedrock of all human beings' psychology. And at this level, you don't see anything. Right? But all of your actions are potential in this level. That's called your karma. Your karma is stored here as vasanas. The actions you do here is stored here as vasanas. And so you keep what? And so that vasana starts to sprout. Normally it sits there in the causal body. The causal body is called the seed body. It's the seed. The seed is like, the tree is hidden in the seed, isn't it? The tree of samsara is hidden in the seed of what? The causal body. So my life, the tree of my life, my little life is what? Hidden in seed form in my personal microcosmic causal body. And that produces kama. That's the next stage. Now it's become manifest. The seed has become a little sprout. It's sprouted in my subtle body as what? As a fear or a desire. The vasana is kind of like an itch. You don't really know what you want. Have you all experienced this? You're just feeling kind of uncomfortable, and you're not sure what you want. Huh? It's a weird state. You'll notice it. It's actually there all the time. But there's this incipient kind of need there, but you don't know what it is. And then suddenly the thought pops into your mind, oh, I want ice cream. Huh? Oh, I want this, or I should go to that. That's it. I should need to go there. I haven't been there. I'll go there. There it becomes known to me. It becomes manifest. When the vasana crosses this line and sprouts, it becomes known. It becomes manifest. It becomes seen. It becomes experienced. This is the world of experience. There's no experience here. It's just potential. This is the world of experience from the causal body on down. And that fear or that desire, what does it do? It causes an action. Vasana, kama, karma. And what does that action do? Produces another vasana, which produces another desire, which produces another action, which produces another var, and the more I act, the more I desire, and the more I desire, the more I act, and pretty soon I'm going like this, faster, faster, faster. Huh? Working out my desires and getting more and more and more desire or craving for these various objects, or fears of these objects. Some people are just running away from everything. They're the fear-oriented types, tamasic types. And the rajasic types, they're all running towards something, full of desire. Give me tamasic people to rajasic people any day. The ones with lots of desire, they drive me crazy. I can't stand being around them. It's awful, that kind of desire that's always busy, busy, busy. Just can't sit still, can't relax, can't take it easy. Why? Because their vasanas are driving them. You see that in our cultures here, Western culture. It's such a shame to see it happen to India. When I first went to India in the 70s, everybody was cool. It was so cool. No, the men just stood around. You'd think everybody, over here we'd say, oh, those useless guys, why are they standing around? They were standing around because they enjoyed themselves. If anybody was working, there were 10 people smoking beedies and drinking chai and talking about the person who was working. Thinking, why is this man doing this? Now everybody's it's just like a madhouse. It's all like downtown Berlin. Everybody just running, rushing all the time. The horns honking and everybody's in a big hurry and they're all rajasic, going chasing their desires, working like crazy. And they're so proud of themselves. They got driving cars and all this shit. You know, it's like... Now, this process of vasana, kama, karma is called the Samsara Chakra. You need to understand this. You need to get our psychology clear. Now, we'll just look at it from another angle, because it's real important. This is really more interesting and more complicated than the self. Self is the self. What's the big deal? It's awareness. So what? It's with me all the time. It's me all the time. No big deal. Nothing to say, really. But now, when we get down here into the samsara, it gets really interesting. To see how Ishvara has created this thing. Mind you, don't feel bad about this, okay? Oh my God, you mean this is a problem? No, it's not your fault. We're just talking about Ishvara. This is how Ishvara sets it up. This is how Maya or Ishvara, the creator, works. It blacks you out. It makes you forget who you are, and then it creates this sense of incompletion, and then it sends you off on this big karmic trip. to try to solve a problem, and you can't solve it by karma. This is why life is so painful and so frustrating. You're trying to solve a problem by karma that cannot be solved by karma. Doing action will not solve my problem. It will not turn me into what? Into that divine being that I would like to be. It won't do it. This is why life is so frustrating. There's all this conflict going on all the time because I'm never really getting what I want. See? I'm never really, what I want is me, but I don't know it. I don't know that what I want is me and that I've got me. I think I haven't got me and that I need, but I need something other than me to make me okay. And so I get up caught in this karmic cycle and I start running on a treadmill, going, doing all the time. You see where the doer comes into this problem. Now, Ishvara set this up in a very, very interesting way. I just gave you an outline of this earlier. The first thing that happens is the material world is exploded. That's your Big Bang. Got that. And then, after a little while, because you have matter sitting on top of consciousness, consciousness is substrate, then what? The first sense organs evolve. Each one of these senses, you have 5 senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. These here. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. You have 5 senses. Those 5 senses evolve out of the 5 elements. The material creation is made of 5 elements: air, fire, water, earth, and space. And out of those 5 elements, because consciousness is there supporting those 5 elements, after some time, or instantaneously, if you believe if you accept the instantaneous theory of creation, it either evolves or it appears simultaneously or instantaneously. There are 5 stimuli. Each one of these elements has a property. It's quite complex. The way in which these elements become material is called panchikarana. And we don't have time in this seminar to explain the whole panchikarana theory or the grossification of the elements. But it doesn't really matter because it's not the point. It's to understand, how matter is created. We want to understand who we are, and you can see from this teaching that this is a very consciously evolved thing. This is a very beautifully evolved mandala of existence. And when you understand it, you'll be clear how you're going to get out of it. Okay? So we got 5 material elements. Those produce 5 stimuli, and those 5 stimuli give rise to the 5 perceptive organs. These perceptive organs are called jnana indriyas. Indriya means an organ, and jnana means knowledge. They're the organs of knowledge. So now awareness is able to what? Smell, taste, touch, feel, and see itself in matter. It has an organ. It has 5 organs. Now the interesting thing about these organs is that when Jiva experiences life, you don't experience 5 different things, do you? You don't have one little movie screen where your eyes, your visual stimuli are coming out, and then another where your audio stimuli are coming in, and you're looking at this screen, and you've got to put all of that information together into one experience. You're not doing that, are you? Ishvara has already done that. Ishvara has what? Integrated the 5 senses into a function called the mind. The mind has 3 functions. It integrates Well, we'll see what they are. The first function is it integrates sense information. That's why you experience, oh, I have only one experience operating here. You don't have 5 different experiences. Even though you have 5 streams of knowledge coming at you all the time, you only have one experience knowledge taking place all the time. And when that happens over millions of years or instantaneously, it just depends on how you look at it, that's called the subtle body. That's the most fundamental building block in the subtle body. That's the part of the subtle body that's closest to the material world. And that's called the mind. It just integrates sense functions. And then, as it integrates, once these sense functions have been integrated into one experience, then the mind takes on another, it performs another function. Ishvara causes the mind to perform another function. And that function is called the doubting function. Don't you have, whenever something happens, don't you always have a doubt how to respond? Yeah, you do. You may not notice it, but instantly you think, should I do this or should I do that? What should I do now? When reality presents a new experience to you, you have to determine, and this is basically an unconscious process that we're evolving here, that we're trying to bring this process into our consciousness. But basically this is an unconscious process. Because when reality presents an experience to me, I am required to respond to it. That's called dharma. Dharma means, the one meaning of dharma, dharma means appropriate response. I need to respond appropriately to what's happening. If I don't respond appropriately to what's happening, I'm not doing my dharma. Look at the source for mischief here. Huh? You see when things go wrong, and they go wrong all the time, it's because I'm not responding appropriately to my environment. I'm not doing my dharma. So, I've got to figure out how to respond, and there's many situations that are very complex, aren't they? You don't really know what to do. Somebody, a business friend of mine was telling me about, he was running a corporation, and he suspected that one of his managers was stealing from the business, but he didn't have proof. He had some kind of tentative evidence, and he wasn't sure how to deal with the situation, whether to confront the man, because of course the man's going to deny it, whether to wait for more information to come in and to get more evidence, or whether to just let it be. He wasn't sure what he should do in this situation. See? There's a lot of complex situations where it's not clear what you should do. You have a doubt. And now why should Ishvara... See, animals don't have doubts. Understand? When we started. Animals don't have doubts. Their program tells them what to do. In every situation, they've got an answer already programmed by Ishvara. And so they just do what Ishvara tells them. They don't even know Ishvara is telling them. They just do it. But in human jivas, they have this doubting function. This subtle body is developed, and why would Ishvara give me that doubting function? Think about this now. Why not? Why can't I just be like an animal? Well, sorry, you can't be like an animal. We don't know why you can't be like an animal. You're not like an animal. You doubt things. And you know something? It's good to doubt. Ishvara is actually helping you by giving you this power of doubting. Why is he helping you? Why is it a help? Because Ishvara knows that Maya, that this apparent reality is not what it seems to be. What you see is not what you get here in Maya. Mind you. If you just accept everything that happens here in this world, you're asking for trouble. Believe me. Huh? Gullible people, stupid people, they just, oh yeah, that's great. And they just take whatever reality throws at them, and they're always in suffering. You've got to ask a question. You need to doubt. You need to think about what's happening. If you don't think about what's happening, you're going to get caught by an appearance. And you're going to react and build your reaction in your life on the basis of appearances, and then you're going to come crashing down and become totally disillusioned when reality stares you in the face. So you better doubt, you better ask questions, particularly in the spiritual world. Huh? There's more fakers here in the spiritual world than any place else. Oddly enough, it seems very strange. Most people don't know they're faking it, particularly the gurus. They all think they're not faking it, but most of them are faking it. They're not giving it to you straight. They think it's straight. Most of them are well-meaning, but they're self-deluded people. Or, for example, how about the dating scene? That's a good example. Now, you get on Match.com, okay? You're lonely, and you go to Match.com, and you read somebody's profile. I'm kind, I'm sensitive, I'm loving, I'm spiritual. Huh? Do you believe that? If you believe what the person says about themselves, you deserve to suffer. Because while there may be a little bit of truth to some of that, they're not telling you the whole story at all. Behind all that wonderful, shiny, beautiful, lovey, warm, fuzzy stuff, there's also a selfish, greedy, fearful, blah, 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 blah person. Because this is a duality. Nothing is what it looks like on the surface. That's what Maya means. Maya means an appearance. That's why we call it an apparent reality. This is a world of shadows. Like that beautiful allegory of Plato's cave. The guy is like in this cave, in this dark cave. See the darkness here? In this dark cave of Maya, and he's chained down, and he's looking at the wall of the cave, and there's a light behind him, meaning the self, and he's looking at these shadows of these people, and objects that are projected on the cave wall, and he's trying to figure out what's real by looking at the shadows of the shadows. He can't turn around and see the light. He's chained down here in Maya, and looking only at appearances, at illusions. So Ishvara is giving us this doubting function. Now, on the basis of what information should I resolve my doubt? Where am I going to get the knowledge that I need to resolve my doubt? I can't just sit there and doubt all the time. That's called dithering. And ditherers are the most miserable people. They just can't make up their mind. I have a friend that took 2 years for her to decide whether or not to have a root canal. She was in pain for 2 years. She had to go to 10 dentists. She had to research every possible amalgam that every possible chemical that they were going to use, and the whole procedures. And it took her 2 years to decide whether she'd have a root canal or not. In the meantime, she's taking all kinds of pills to keep the pain away. It was really amazing. Finally, she just, she had to do, and it was nothing. The root canal was nothing, and she's fine. But she could have saved 2 years of pain and misery and dithering and worry, if she just had gone forward and had a root canal. But no, she couldn't do it, because this doubting function had completely destroyed her sense of discrimination. Now, where am I going to get the information? Well, Ishvara to the rescue again. Dum taram, here comes Ishvara. Got the solution just for you. He invented or evolved the intellect. The intellect is another function in the subtle body. The subtle body has this integrating function, the doubting function, and the determining function. The intellect can make choices and discriminations. Understand? It can choose. It can say, do this or do that. That you, fortunately, again, animals don't have that function. They're programmed. But we actually have the function where we can make choices. And on the basis of what do we choose what to do? Where does the intellect get the information to choose what it wants to do, how to respond to a particular situation? What's the next? The causal body. Your vasanas, your program, your conditioning. And if you don't have a personal condition to solve that problem, Ishvara's got a solution for you already. There's already a vasana here that's been worked out in that condition, and then Ishvara just supplies that one, just like an instinctual reaction or an intuitive reaction. Comes directly from system, what we call it system 1 in psychology, from the causal body. Yes, sir?
So if I am a seeker of truth, then I no longer use the intellect to interpret my life according to my vasanas. I use the intellect to interpret my life according to the truth.
That's correct. That's correct. Absolutely. Now, remember now, this process from the stimulus, this is called stimulus in psychology, this information going in, and this is called response. This stimulus response mechanism takes place instantly, by 50th of a second. That means what? My programming, your vasanas are your programming, that's built up out of your actions, out of your desires and your actions. You get programmed to behave in a certain way. And then what happens? The intellect gets the information from here, and then this hasn't quite finished. We're halfway through the process. Then what does the intellect do? The intellect creates a thought, or Ishvara you can say, creates a thought, and that's called the thought, the doer. A thought arises in the intellect. That thought is called the doer. You see, we can't get rid of the doer. The doer is part of this whole unconscious process that's set up by Ishvara. So this thought, this doer thought, appears in the intellect or in the subtle body. Either way, however you want to think of it. And it decides, I need to act. That's the doer, the actor. It says, I need to respond here to this situation. And then where does the energy go next? The energy goes to the emotions. In other words, now the mind comes back. The mind transforms itself into an emotion. Mind is quite amazing. It has these three functions. The subtle body then what? Produces an emotion that's appropriate to the action. Because I can't do an action without emotion. Emote means to move. Motor, the word motor means movement. To emote means to move. My emotions are what move me toward an object or away from an object. So now I have the appropriate emotion, And then what? Then the final stage is what? The information goes what? To my 5 active organs. These are called the karma indriyas. Karma indriyas or karma indriyas. These are the organs of action. There's 5 of them, just like there's 5 of these, just like there's 5 of these. Oh, there's a little link here I didn't include on the chart. There's a link between the subtle and causal body. That's called the pranamaya kosha. That means the energy sheath. This is all of this thoughts, all of this stuff here is taking place on the thought level, on the sensation or the thought level. It hasn't been transferred into action yet. It needs to go through the physiological system. Digestion, excretion, respiration, assimilation, injection, so forth and so on. There's 5 pranas or 5 energies that are operating in a sphere here. And so that emotion translates through that and activates the 5 physical organs. And then what do? Then the action takes place in the world, the response. And the cycle is completed. Now, what happens? When I act here, when I respond to a situation and react to the situation according to my programming, I change my environment. I produce a new situation in my environment, which sets this whole process in motion again. And I react to that new situation, which further changes the situation, which causes the reaction. And so what happens? I go round and round and round from a stimulus to a response over and over and over again. That's called Samsara Chakra. Chakra means a wheel of energy, and Samsara means what? What that never remains the same. This is why I get worn out in life. That's why I get tired and grow old. You don't need to grow old. You will age a bit. If you understand how to get out of this chakra, even though your body will age, you won't age. You'll be fresh and young even when you're 60, 70, 80, 90 years old. Because this, right, involving yourself in this process, identifying with this process, right, wears you out. It wears your body, it wears your mind out. This is why people get old and tired and grumpy and cranky and depressed in their old age. And just sit around like zombies watching TV, you know. They've been completely, what, worn out by this chakra. It just sapped all of their energy, all their vitality. Yeah. And consequently, and the actions that they do are the same actions. They keep repeating them over and over and over again. This is why boredom, and you see that in our societies. Remember we said that once you got wealth in a society, then you start going for luxury and pleasure. Huh? Why do you go for luxury and pleasure if you're already wealthy? Because you're bored. And why are you bored? You're bored with your life. You always want a distraction. You want a vacation. You want something to change. You want something to happen. You want anything just to get me out of this continually boring, repetitive chakra of my life. Always looking for something new and fresh and hoping to, and somebody comes along and says, oh, the latest thing, and off you go. Because you're bored. Because what? Because this chakra has got you. And the more you do it, the more you get stuck in it. Chakra, samsara is another meaning of that. It's called a whirlpool. A whirlpool. Now, whirlpool is a very interesting phenomenon in nature. It has centripetal energy. There's two kinds of energy. One is centrifugal energy, and the other is centripetal energy. Centrifugal energy is what? Expansive energy. It flows around, and then it throws things off like a slingshot or a boomerang. You go like this, and then off it goes. It gets rid of things. Like that's how they send rocket ships to rockets to Mars. They send it out to a planet that's closer. They put it in the gravitational field of that planet, and that planet accelerates it. It starts to spin faster and faster and faster. It went in at 50,000 miles an hour, and when it comes out of that gravitational field, when they release it from that gravitational field, it's going at 100,000 miles an hour, and it goes like that. It goes away. But samsara is not that kind of energy. It doesn't throw things away. What does it do? It's centripetal. It sucks you in. It gets you tighter and tighter and tighter. And it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And the more you struggle to get out, the more you get stuck in it. It's like, that's why they call it a whirlpool. That's why the meaning of samsara is a whirlpool. Isn't that right? The more you do these actions, the more you involve, the more tightly you get bound and attached to what? Your situation, to the actions themselves, to the people around you, to your ideas. You can't think for yourself anymore. The thoughts just keep thinking themselves. And you don't like those thoughts. They're uncomfortable, unpleasant thoughts, but they keep going round and round and round and round and round in your mind, and you want to get rid of them. You want to stop your mind or throw. You can see where yoga came in and this idea of enlightenment, of getting rid of your thoughts, because they're painful. It's painful. So samsara is suffering. We call it suffering. The whole Buddhist teaching of enlightenment is about samsara. It says life. Buddha's first noble truth is what? Life is suffering. Christ hanging on the cross. That's a symbol of suffering. Whether you like it or not, to me that's the most beautiful symbol of samsara. This guy hanging on this cross being the four elements on the material world. And he's just these nails sticking you to this cross of matter. And it's painful, and you're lying there, and you're bleeding, and you're slowly dying. Ooh. So, this afternoon, at 2:30, we'll tell you how to get out of it.